Our last speaker is Ceci Royals. Ceci is married to Tom Royals, and if anybody here has any connections with the Heights School, you know all about Tom. They've been married. Tom has fled the country rather than participate in this conference. So he was apparently called on a Heights Crescete trip at the last minute. So he's in Malta, because, why not? So Ceci's here alone today, but she and Tom have been married for almost 45 years. They have 8 children and 23 grandchildren. That's correct. Okay, so the Bowmans get the most grandchildren award. But their oldest is a priest for the Archdiocese of Washington, Father Drew, and they have 2 daughters and 3 sons, including 2 graduates of the Naval Academy. They have 2 adult daughters who have Down syndrome and live with them, along with Tom's 96-year-old mother. So, just in case you think things might, slow down as you move down the road, don't count on it. When Tom sent me some information about Ceci for this introduction, and he described her as now being in a busy season of her life. So, aren't you glad you're finally busy, Ceci? Yeah. So before she wasn't, when she was doing nothing, she was the founder and president of the National Institute of Womanhood, and then she led the National Institute of Womanhood to participate as an NGO in several United Nations international conferences and summit meetings, and was a guest speaker at many conferences worldwide. Closer to home, she was the force behind the 87 Coffees Initiative, an effort to safeguard marriage between one man and one woman in Maryland. Following the change in marriage laws in 2014, she established the ad hoc nonprofit called Families Excel to host a conference entitled, "We Still Believe in Marriage, Now What?" Tom, her husband, who's not here, but has worked at the Heights School since 1979. He is a survivor of 3 Spence boys, and had taught and then held various administrative positions and became the assistant headmaster in 1998. Ceci's going to talk to us about families helping each other with the teenage problems we all face. So if anybody can dream up, I don't know, what do you talk about? But Ceci Royals.
All right. Thank you so much for the introduction and for being willing to listen to me without Tom. As you know, he's in Malta. He's so happy there. He's with Chris Breslin. He believes he's a Knight of Malta, and so does Chris Breslin. At any rate, for those of you who are missing Tom, okay. All right, and then I have another little technical difficulty here. I'm reading here that it really does say helping each other deal with the teenage issues we all face. But we got a different title. So I will tell you what that title was in just a minute. It was Families Helping Families Deal with the Challenges We All Face. Now, yes, of course, we do know that teenagers are a primary part of the challenges we all face. But Tom and I looked at each other and we said, what do you think why do you think they want us to talk about that? So we tried to, dig in and figure out what it was. But a couple of days ago, I was at my mother's house, who's 95. I try to visit her every day. And so, how's your weekend? What's going on? And I let her know I was coming to this event, and that I was going to speak, and that Tom, sort of left me holding everything, and I told her I was going to throw him under the bus. So expect that. And she said, "You're titled," and I said, "Families Helping Families Deal with the Challenges We All Face." And my mother looks at me and says, "Why do they think you know anything about that?" Well, my brother, who was sitting right there too, a little bit younger than I am, so he was the recipient of all my 13 and 14-year-old parenting, when he was the kid and I was telling him, "You must eat what you were served," etc., whatever it was. So he, had my mother's opinion too. But I'm going to approach this subject with stories. And out of that stories, hopefully, we can extract a little wisdom, and maybe we'll together find some answers to the questions we all have. But I'll tell you this: I disagree with everything that was said today. Pretty much. No, not really. You don't have to know it all. You don't have to have massive plans. With my two sons from the Naval Academy, one went on to be a Wizzo on the F-18 Super Hornets, and the other one went on to fly the Hawkeye planes that, if you've seen the latest Tom Cruise Top Gun stuff, is the airplane that flies really high, that sees everything, and that's what. And that airplane happens to be the hardest one to land on aircraft carriers. And there is a prize that's bigger than Top Gun. And it is because it's extremely objective. It is done by computers. And it is that every single landing on the aircraft carrier is observed, is measured, is what have you. And there are 3 chains. And the airplane has a hook, and when you come in for a landing, you need to that hook needs to grab on one of those chains, or you go into the drink on the other end of the aircraft carrier. Either that, or you have to take off again. And they measure this. There's all sorts of things that they do, and it's for therapeutic purposes for the pilots, At any rate, so to make this very long story short about that, is that son is now has the award of top hook, which means the computers have said he has been, for his right now he was just recently came back from deployment to the South China Seas, and landed the hardest airplane to land on aircraft carriers, because it has that enormous dish on top of them, and it's all like this, and he has the top hook award. All right, so having said that, I'll bring Tom up again. Yay! Tom just got elected as the WCAC, which is the sports, for those of you in sports, Washington Catholic Conference, Coach of the Year for swimming. Yay! So I just lost my talk. What I wanted to tell you about why I brought up my two sons and they having flown in war is that the first thing that goes when you engage in warfare or in anything, pretty much, is the plan. That's the first thing that goes out the window. You now have to deal with reality and with what is thrown at you, and that beautiful plan that you had, and all of those things are gone. And I need to type in my password because my computer went to sleep. All right. So So that's why I say you don't really need to know, because we know, those of us who are wise, and everybody in this room is wise, okay, that it is God who helps us. It is God who inspires us. It is God who whispers into us, who tells us to check in on that child, and sure enough, they had a raging fever, and on and on. It wasn't because we were so smart, because we were out there on our date with our husband, having our wine, and, but something says, check on that child. We know that we do things, that we receive messages, whether we recognize them or not, constantly from God, from our guardian angel, and what have you. So that's it. Count on God. He won't let you down. Okay, my talk is done. No, you're right. But I never do this. I've never done this. Any of you who've ever seen me speak, I've never brought one of these things with me, nor this other little prop that I'm going to pull out right now. And that is because I think the whole thing is very weird. Okay. Dead flowers, right? I had them on my counter in the kitchen because I was going to compost them. I'm trying to do composting, and I've got these dead flowers there, and I kept looking at them, and I kept thinking, they really do illustrate a point, which is basically, if you separate yourself from the vine, okay, you may bloom for a while. And in fact, those got treated very well because they were the flowers that Tom brought me for Valentine's Day. So those got the little salt for flowers, and they were treated, and they lasted very nicely for a while. But now look at them. Right? Okay? They're going to go into the compost. In fact, I'm not even taking this home with me. But the reason that I wanted you to think about this is because first we brought in, and so did Father Carter Griffin, bring in God. Okay? We separate ourselves from God, and we may look like beautiful blooms for a while. Long enough for us to believe that we can produce fruit without Him. Okay? But look at these flowers. Really? Really? Because that is our reality if we separate ourselves from God. We cannot give wisdom. We will become self-absorbed. We will become negligent. And a few other things. But I'm not getting to the point of my talk yet. We need to count on the graces that we will have. Now, the point is the challenges we all face. Lump in there teenagers, all right? Let's get real. Our spouse is a lemon, all right? Our kids are lemons, all right? Their bodies don't work the way they were supposed to. They were all going to be athletes, They were all going to be brilliant. They were all going to be healthy. They were never going to get into any of the vices. About our spouse being a lemon, I think every single one of us gets to a point in their marriage where they go, what was God thinking when He put us together? I mean, really. This thing about opposites attract, that attraction stops even before the honeymoon is over. All right? Pat brought up this affirmation, these words of affirmation. Well, my husband and I are opposite in that category. His words of affirmation. I am 0 in words of affirmation. I took that little thing, not the big Cadillac version of Peterson, but one of those other ones that they have going around here. And I'm 0 in words of affirmation, and my husband that's his primary love language. And he is telling me things like, I could never live without you. Your face reminds me of the sunset. I'm not exaggerating. I'm a little bit more like Eliza Doolittle. Never do I ever want to hear another word. There isn't one I haven't heard. If you love me, show me. Show me now. All right? So, our kids. Our kids are lemons. Just when they get old enough to be really pleasant to talk to, they're gone. Our careers, they failed to launch. We were supposed to be these great things, these books that we were supposed to have written. We keep losing grasp at that little professional prestige we thought we had or we were going to hold on to, and it's just sliding out from under our fingers. Our social standing. These are all challenges we face, and they are very real, and it affects our relationships and how we treat our children. And if you're going to be married for 45 years, like Tom and I are getting ready to be in May, you're going to have seen a lot of death. Death of loved ones, of siblings, of parents, of children. You will see family members needing to go to rehab for drugs or alcohol, for porn, maybe even prison. And this is real families. And these are the families that help other families. And we are the families that, because we know it is God who inspires us, we will have what to say and what to do and where to be. And so the key point to take away from this is that the family is the way of the cross. Okay? Real families in real time helping real people carry the cross with the plans out the window. Let's talk about perfection for just a moment. I think perfection, when it comes to family life, is like an impressionistic painting. All right? So all these little dots on the canvas, ding, 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 ding. You're up close and you think, how could that painter have figured out what it was doing? Well, you step back from the impressionistic painting, if you're familiar with what I'm talking about, you see it. Wow, there is a boat full of people there, and they're all having tea. And the women have parasols, But you're up close and it's this thing. Well, we have perfect little moments. That's what God permits us. A perfect moment of a smile to someone. A perfect moment of putting the computer down and listening. A perfect moment of affirmation, even if it's against your temperament. Okay, we have perfect moments that dot the canvas of our life and of our family life, that when you step back and take the whole picture, you see it. But when you're going through it, you don't. So families helping families, the bottom line is stay in touch with each other. Do not isolate yourselves. And this is something that we need to fight against. We are in an isolating type of a culture. The quality of conversations, there's a study that was published January 27th, 2023 on communication research. And I'm just a housewife, so I'm just going to give it to you sort of the way I got it. Talking with a friend just once during the day can both increase feelings of happiness and lower stress levels by the end of the day. Talking just once a day with a friend. All right? It used to be over the back fence, a lot of it. Initiate over the back fence talking. All right? the results of this big study suggest that engaging in as little as one communication behavior with one friend can improve daily well-being. And you already know that if daily well-being is improved, how improved family life is. But what kind of communication are they talking? Well, of course, wouldn't it be great if all of it was meaningful? Yes, you do get to the meaningful conversation when you're in the habit of a little bit of conversation, all right? But it also means just catching up, showing that you care, remembering the other one had an exam or something like that. Joking around works. In fact, this joking around thing is extremely important. It's seeing the sense of humor in the things that are happening and enjoying it, not belittling others, not at the expense of others, but just the joy of juxtaposition of things and of things that happen. Valuing others' opinions, offering sincere compliments. The operative word is sincere, okay? They believe that those conversations, those little things that you do, give a sense of belonging. That's what a culture is. That's what a community is. You belong there. This is home. People know who I am. People know where I came from. People know where I want to go. But I want to add that these little conversations do not need to be with a friend. It can be with an acquaintance or even a stranger. And this is very important for all of us here because we run into more strangers than we do with friends. Everywhere we go, we run into strangers. And everywhere we go, we have an opportunity to have a person feel seen, feel that they were contemplated and appreciated. And so, I'll give you my first anecdote, what I learned from somebody else. I had a child that had, one of my Down's children needed open heart surgery. And the open heart surgery, while it went very well, thank you doctors, thank you God, thank you angels, some of it didn't go as well as anticipated and wound up needing a pacemaker, that on and on. And so one thing led to another, and viral pneumonia and what have you. So now I'm spending a great deal of time in the NIC, in the intensive care unit at Children's Hospital down in DC. And what happens when you, at that time, the intensive care unit had the central portion where all the doctors and the nurses and everybody and all those attendings and all those experts were there. And the units where the patients were all around, separated by curtains, and it was all around. So at Children's Hospital, being as wonderful as it is, parents are allowed to spend all their time with the kids that they can. And so I was there with my little baby who was 7 months old and doing whatever it was. And you get to see and hear a lot of things. So you hear the radio crackle, and there's the voice of the helicopter operator saying he's 15 minutes out, da-da-da-da, and immediately there's instant adrenaline through the entire room. Get it ready, get things going, and you can hear it. You know what they're doing, which is the team that's going to meet the helicopter, what's going on, blah, blah, and you hear them starting getting the briefing. It was a car accident out in Virginia, a teenager, very, very severely injured, blah, blah, blah. You hear this, then you see them all, there's the whoosh as they all run out. You can hear it sometimes. And then the flying open of the NICU doors, and in they come, bringing this child, this teenager in a stretcher, and they bring him to the space right beside mine, separated only by a curtain. And you hear, there is nothing they can do for him. The teenager quarterback, 17 years old, was still alive, but there is nothing they could do for him. You hear the attendings talking. You say nothing, you're there, you start praying, it's like mad. how far out are the parents? We heard that they're coming in. They should be in here within 20 minutes. Okay, we can keep him alive. We can keep him alive. We'll keep him alive so the parents arrive and the teen is still alive. Fine. You hear that. So, and you hear parents. Parents have arrived. Ambulance are here, and right away you hear there's a priest coming. They want the priest to anoint the teen. Fine. They all come in, and so the curtain begins to bulge out because there's so many people in that space. So I respectfully left my sleeping child and went to the parent waiting room, and there I see the entire retinue of friends of this teenager arrive. There were more girls absolutely in love with that boy than I have seen. There were so many girls that arrived weeping from the bottom of their hearts, all right? And sure enough, I mean, I knew what the rest of the story was going to be, all right? They're all there. I'm disappeared into the corner, letting this thing play itself out. And the parents arrive. The priest arrives. What is apparently, they all go in. They all come back out. The child has passed. The teenager has passed. And the weeping and the whatever. And who is consoling? The mother is taking all of those teen girls by hugging them, straightening out their hair, doing whatever. The next one comes. They're all falling apart. She is consoling. She is looking. She is peaceful. And then the noise, it went on for a while, everybody, but then it was clear there's no more to be done here. The son is in the morgue. We all go home now. I guess you hear the mother. I guess we have food. We have this. You hear her directing, leading, etc. And the din begins to get quiet as people are leaving. Who's the last one to leave that waiting room? It's the mother. And what is she doing? So-and-so forgot her sweater. This is going on over here. And she's kind of like picking up the loose ends that were left there. And then she sees me. I was in the dark corner. She sees me. And she's like, oh my goodness, you're here. That must mean you have a child in the NICU, in the intensive care unit. And I was like, oh yes, no, don't worry. She's in for open heart surgery. We planned this, And she goes, oh, you have a child with heart problems. To know that you have a child with heart problems, that is so difficult. And she went to console me. And I'm trying to tell her, oh, no, we planned this. This was planned, whatever. But the thing is, the lesson was, and I've lost my thing, is she was consoling me, And I offered my consolation to her that I could, but it has stayed with me for 40 plus years. That mother's way she was, and my computer is not going to. All right, so the key point is that there can be one conversation that can affect somebody for the whole life. And it can be from a stranger, and you can be the stranger that contributes it. And we should take the moment. We should not waste the time, because we will not get that time again. That time will pass, and we will not be in that circumstance. And perhaps there was a very real reason why it was we who were in that moment, at that time, in that place. Okay? And so the next anecdote has to do with no time to waste. You know, a lot of us think about when we're not so busy, when we finally, have enough money and we've already paid off some major things or whatever, when in the future we're going to actually get to some real living, to some real talking, to some real things. And we have one son who had an aneurysm of the aorta, okay? And we discovered that when he was 10 years old. And he had an aneurysm that was ready to burst. It wasn't just sort of beginning, it was ready to burst. And the doctor consulted worldwide, and they only found 15 instances worldwide where a 10-year-old had been found with an aorta ready to burst. And so they did not know what to do. Should they come in and try to do a surgery? And that aneurysm was at the base of its aorta where it came right out of the heart. Okay? So they decided that basically they would kill him on the operating table if they tried to do anything, that the best thing to do was to wait for every so many months and keep checking. And the doctor said to Tom and I, don't make him a cardiac cripple. There is nothing you can do to prevent it. If the aorta is going to go, it will go, and he'll have about a minute to live. So just let him lead his life. And so I take that little boy home, 10 years old, and he had listened to what the doctor had said in his amount of 10 years of education. And at that night, he comes to me and he says, Mom, do I or do I not have a heart problem? So rather than complicate the issue for him and start parsing, well, it's your aorta and your valves and your this and that, I said, yes, son, you have a heart problem. And he said, Mom, can I or can I not die from it? He had this a and not a kind of attitude. Can I or can I not die from it? And immediately, this is when, you shoot that, you don't even say anything. God knows you're asking. What do I say to this boy? Because he's 10, for crying out loud. And the thought that was immediately is, he's the one that's going to die. He will be the one that dies. Wouldn't it be good that he knew he's under that threat? So I said, Andrew, his name is, yes, you can die from it. Okay, but then immediately God supplied a little anecdote for me, which was that shortly before that, a boy had died drowning on the Potomac. The Potomac had frozen over. The little 5-year-old boy had gone out too far onto the Potomac, broke through the ice. It was all over the news. They had tried for 45 minutes to save him, and he didn't die. And I asked him, do you remember that little boy in the news of about 2 weeks ago? And he says, yes, I remember. 5 years old, he died. And Andrew, do you think that if his parents had known that his life was only going to be 5 years, do you think they might have done some things differently? And he says, yes, Mom, I think they would have done some things differently. And together we said, made good use of time, made the best of those 5 years, done the best we can. So Andrew, the doctors will figure it out, and you will get to be 80 years old and all of those things, but God wants you to know that time is not to be wasted, that every moment counts, that every day counts. And he listened to me. Tom was with us. We were in the bedroom upstairs, and he bounced on the bed the way 10-year-olds are supposed to do. He bounced on the bed twice. I just always remember why I remember. It was once, twice. And he goes, Mom, it's a blessing. Okay. So, do not waste time. It is not tomorrow that you have to get things right. It is not tomorrow that your kids need to do what it takes. So, we should visit each other's homes. This has been said a great deal. And we've also talked about the visiting of each other's home is this keeping of company, is this seeing and contemplating each other and finding out the little things that we say to each other, small little things. And I'll tell you an anecdote of a friend. Years and years ago, I was expecting my 5th, and she was expecting her 1st. And so we were going through the happiness of a couple expecting their 1st. Oh, and this, and are we going to have a shower, and on this. And of course I was on my 5th, so there was a lot of coming over because observing how this is handled, and it was wonderful, it was great, it was fun. And then after a doctor's appointment, there's an okay. And I don't think so, and I'm really mad at the doctors and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so the reality is that this mom was expecting a child that would not survive birth, that it would live maybe 10 minutes at best after the child was delivered. And so there was all that going through that went with her. So then comes the accompanying of this mother. And so among the things that we talked about was the fact that no mother had a guarantee. Nobody has a guarantee. And I used the example, even me, I'm expecting my 5th. This child could be retarded. This child could have something. There are no guarantees. We move forward. And so she did have her baby. The baby did die within 10 minutes. We accompanied for the funeral. We did these things. But the accompanying didn't stop there. We moved on to, and I'm moving along in my pregnancy, and I think I have a 1 in 4 chance that this might happen again, but I think that's I can probably have at least 3 more without it happening again. Statistically, this is going to work. And this idea that I've paid my dues, I'm done, I've had the difficult thing happen. And my baby is born, and it's my first child with Down syndrome. And I had said to her, maybe this child is retarded. This mom came to my bedside that night. My child was born at around 2 or 3 in the afternoon. By 6, she was at my bedside, and all she did was weep. Wept unconsolably, wept embarrassed. She was embarrassing herself. She knew it, but she wept. But the thing is, I felt accompanied. I felt seen. All right? So what I want to tell you about that is we don't have to wait until we're eloquent. We don't have to wait. We can do the accompanying of each other in the challenges we face in a sloppy manner, in the way it comes out, but accompany. It doesn't have to be elegant. Just do it, all right? The company with her kept going on. One day, we pulled in to a parking lot, unplanned. She pulls in, and I pulled in right beside her. We were coming to a funeral. And she gets out of the car as sort of she's having the aha moment, and I'm getting out of my car having the aha moment. And we looked at each other, and we realized we were both having the same aha moment. We are not done. The funeral was for a 16-year-old boy who had died in an automobile accident in a family where they were prohibited to drive before they were 18. because the oldest had been killed in an automobile accident when she was 16. Okay? These are the things that real families face in real time. And she and I looked at each other and we knew we were not done. And it's about accompanying each other. You're not done until it's you who's the dead one. All right? And somebody else is sad. Maybe. About blessings and how we count our blessings. A very dangerous thing to do. I'm not sure that I recommend it for the following reason. So that little boy that was born and had to end up in the intensive care unit for days and weeks turned out had a congenital blood disorder. And so after the transfusions went out of his system and he had to produce his own blood, we began to realize his blood's not working. So I became a hematology clinic regular. And at Children's Hospital at that time, the regulars come on Wednesdays. And so I started coming on Wednesdays with this little baby that was first little tiny, and then he could sit on my lap, and then eventually he's moving around and that sort of thing. But I noticed early on that I was coinciding with another mom who had a little 3-year-old girl. And you learn very quickly, you mind your own business because you don't know who's going to make who cry, okay? And so the little 3-year-old girl, this mom and that 3-year-old girl, and she saw me and I saw her, and I have my baby and what have you. The next time I coincided with her, her little 3-year-old didn't have hair. Then I coincided with her again, and her little 3-year-old was pushing an IV pole. And then I coincided with her again, and she was on a gurney. Okay, and at that time I had a friend that to this day I will be extremely thankful for, because I was commenting about this that I was observing and what I was thinking, and I was thinking that the hematologist had explained to me that the thing that my son had was really in severity like the common cold compared to the things they deal with in hematology. It was like the common cold. So I was mentioning to this friend how I was understanding that I needed to count my blessings, that this was something. And she didn't let me go any further. And she said, stop. Don't think for one moment that your child is more blessed because he is less ill. And that has stayed with me forever. Do not think that your child is more blessed because they are not ill. We went on, Tom and I, to have 8 children, 2 of which have Down syndrome, as was mentioned. And I brought that lesson home to them very early in their lives, as there they were with all these talents firing off. No problem. And the question was, do you think God loves you more than Mary or Margaret because you are not retarded? And I will use the word because that is the truth. We don't need to talk in euphemisms. Because for that matter, everybody is disabled. And the worst kind of disability is a moral one of pride. And of course, they knew immediately that God did not love them more. They knew how much God loved Mary and God loved Margaret. So what we need to take away is that afflictions and sicknesses and counter events, contretemps, etc., they are neither a blessing nor a curse. Okay? It is an opportunity that God is giving us to get closer to him in the way that he wants us to be close to him. So, you let me know when we're done, please. 8 minutes, okay. So when I was in college, I had a friend of mine, fallen away Catholic, who turned Buddhist. Very active in the Buddhist religion and really rah-rah, go Buddhist. And she thought that she could bring me in to the fold, you know. And I'm looking at her, and you're a baptized Catholic. I'm still going to have to work on her when I get away from here. And, well, one of the things she explained to me was about karma. And, of course, you may or may not be aware about karma. But karma is that idea that you set causes in motion, and they will have effects. And if you set a good cause in motion, there will be a good effect somehow, somewhere, will return to you. And if you set a bad cause in motion, somehow, somewhere, that bad cause will return to you. And if not in this life, in the next. You know, why are some people, you know, born such and such? Well, when that first child of mine was born and wound up spending 10 days in the intensive care unit, and then we did not know whether he was going to live or die, and what was the problem with his blood, and what was going to happen, it really wasn't that Buddhist friend who was looking rather baffled because she thought I was nice. And she couldn't figure out, you know, what could I have done in a previous life, you know, that really merited this to happen to me. So she really wasn't accusing. I don't want to suggest that. But she was really rather confused. And it was a friend who said some things a long time ago, and they got written down. That gave me a lot of consolation. And they were written down in this way, and you will recognize it as soon as I read it. As this friend passed by, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents?" Who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Jesus answered, "Neither he nor his parents sinned. It was so that the works of God might be made visible through him." The message, everything happens so that the works of God might be made visible through it. Everything happens for that reason. And it is our job to figure out what it is that needs to be made manifest. Tom, who's not here, who skipped out and went to Malta, he did send me some notes. And the one thing he wanted to communicate to fathers, he's got a lot of experience about this father-son thing going on for 44 years at the Heights. And the one message is, fathers, let your children know you love them. You do, of course. Your hearts would break should there be some kind of tragedy. But do you communicate it in a language they understand? Listen to them. Give them importance. Find out what makes them tick. Love them. Show it. Get into that uncomfortable zone. And he added one more thing, one anecdote that he wanted to tell of all the 50 million things that we could tell, which was when Mary was born, our first Downs child. And she was my fifth, so I knew how labor and delivery was supposed to go, sort of had a good idea, but you never really do because every child has its way of appearing into the world. And we went into the labor room, and no. The guardian angel, I'm sure, was whispering. And I said to Tom, Tom, did you bring the way? Got it right here. Of course he did. Had it right there. Pulls it out. What do you need? Tom, you know there's that prayer that Saint Jose Maria used to say. I don't remember it exactly. You know, I think I heard the story that he said it when his mother died, something like that. And he goes, just a minute, I got it. Pum, pum, pum. This one? And he reads it. And I said, yes, that's it. And together he and I put our foreheads together and we prayed it at least 20 times, one after the other. And it was, may the most just and the most lovable will of God be done, be fulfilled, be praised, and eternally exalted above all things. Amen. Amen. And after about the 20th time, I said to Tom, I'm ready. And he says to me, Ceci, do you know something I don't know? And I said, I don't know, Tom, but I had to have that prayer. And then, of course, our Mary Patricia was born with Down syndrome, and it was the delivery doctor that cried. Tom and I looked at each other. I couldn't tell because he was on this side, and the news, she came from this side, and he was on this side of the bed. And I had to see his face. And when I looked back to see him, what he thought, he just... It's going to show in my face, but he had the tenderest expression towards me. And we knew we were going to be okay. So the long story short about how to help families, you accompany them. You don't wait until you're eloquent. You just do it. But you rely on God. You rely on God. And you do it for Him, and you try to do what He wants. And it'll work. It'll work. And all of you are experts at it. Because God is the expert. He's the one whispering in your ear. All right, done.